Yeah, so my name is Reed Moore. It's a funny name. It's a command. And I'm glad you guys all got that. Some of you haven't yet, but just laugh along. It is a command. I remember my parents didn't realize that it was a command at first until I came back from what we call kindergarten, so our first, primary school. And I came home and I was like, Mom, everybody's making fun of my name. And she was like, you have a beautiful name. It's a strong name. And I was like, they're calling me Read More Books. And she went, oh. She hadn't thought about it. So I'll give you guys a little bit of background on me. You don't know me, and hopefully I'll get to meet you. I'll give you a little background on me, and this will be important because a little bit of this background is going to help you understand why what we're about to talk about is so important to me, why I'm so passionate about us getting this right. So for me, I've worked in churches now for 18 years. But before that, I didn't grow up in a Christian home. My mom was moderately Catholic, and my dad didn't do any church. And so he would work all week, come home on the weekends, and my mom would sometimes go to church. And so my brother and I, we didn't grow up going to church or to youth group or anything like that. And so, for as long as I could remember, we just didn't. And if my dad didn't, then I didn't want to either. And when I was in college, in my 20s, I was working a summer job. And when I was working the job in between semesters in college for the summer, my mom was like, you're not going to come home and play Xbox. And so she's like, you're going to get a job, you're going to work, you're going to get some money. And so I got a job doing landscaping, mowing the grass at businesses. And so I was doing that with a guy, and that guy just so happened to be a believer in Jesus. And he talked about Jesus all the time with me, and not in a pushy way, not in an offensive way. He just talked about Jesus like Jesus was somebody that he knew. And he talked about him like somebody he had a personal relationship with. And he lived a life that was very compelling, and it was attractive. He was the kind of guy that would pay for the people behind him in a line, and I would be like, "Why are you doing that?" He's like, "Just been blessed and want to pay it forward." And so he would do things like that. I can remember working with that guy as the first time I experienced grace. I came to work one Monday after a night of partying, and I still smelled like the party before, and I was late. I was late coming in, and I thought for sure he was going to fire me. And he put his arm around me, and he was like, "Come on, let's keep going." He's like, "I'm not giving up on you." He's like, "You're here. Let's go. Let's get to work, and don't do it again," right? And so, but he gave me grace, and he loved on me, and he kept showing up for me, and he answered my questions. And when he couldn't answer my questions, he'd say, "I don't know," which was the first time I'd ever heard a Christian say they didn't know, And so he let me wrestle with things. And by the end of that summer, he ended up presenting the gospel to me on the side of the road after mowing grass at a local business. And he presented the gospel, and can I tell you guys, I believed in the love of Jesus because I had experienced it in a person. And so I believed in the love of an invisible God because a visible person had shown it to me. And it made all the difference in my life. And at that point, you guys, I began to follow Jesus, and I was excited. Let me tell you this. I was excited about Jesus, about grace, about actually serving in the church. I got really excited. As a matter of fact, he signed me up to serve like the day after I got saved. He was like, "All right, so I'll see you at church next week. I signed you up to lead Sunday school." And I was like, "What?" I didn't have a Bible or anything. And he was like, "Oh, we'll get you one of those." He bought me a Bible with my name engraved on it. And I was like, "Oh." And then I started serving with him. So I was excited about that. At the same time, I was also frustrated. I was frustrated with the Christians that I'd known growing up. And my frustration was, why did nobody tell me about this? Why did nobody treat me like this? And I'll get emotional right now because I thought, why was I not accepted like this? Why did it take so long for somebody to welcome me, to love me, to show me God's grace? Why is it that when I'd shown up at church before, why is it that I had felt unwelcomed? I'll never forget, you guys, I was a I was a senior in high school, about to graduate and go to university. And my life was a mess. And my mom, who at that time had then begun following Jesus and was going to a Methodist church, she told me, she was like, you need Jesus and you need to go to church. And I went to the local youth group. And I walked in, and there was a girl from my high school, and she knew my reputation. And when I got there, she had signed in and welcomed all the kids that she knew very well. All the insiders, like Lane just talked about. Oh, welcome to Youth Fellowship, And she had put their names on like little stickers, and they had all been welcomed. And when it became my turn in the queue, she looked at me and she said, "Why are you here?" And I left. I was already worried what God was going to think about me. And she confirmed all my fears. And I thought, oh. And so I became very passionate, you guys. After becoming a follower of Jesus, getting involved in the church, I said, I want people to know the goodness and the grace of God. And I want to reach people who were just like me. And so I tried to do it. And I was doing everything that I knew how to do. I was starting Bible studies at my house, and I was working at this little, this Methodist church that was in my hometown, and I'm working, and I'm trying from the bottom seat, to help them think about outsiders. And then, along the way, I ended up running into North Point Ministries, Andy Stanley, all this stuff, and have now had the opportunity to be working there. Been the youth pastor at Gwinnett Church. I was the youth pastor for 7 years, and then now I'm the lead pastor going on 3 years. And at North Point, what I discovered is a strategy and some language and some intentionality that I had not had before. I always had the passion, always had the desire. I just didn't necessarily have the tools. And so I came to North Point, and I found a group of like-minded people that were passionate about reaching the me's in their community. They were passionate about reaching unchurched people in their community. And they had a plan for it, and it was really, really great, and a strategy for it. And so what I want to do with our time together is I want to share some of that strategy, some of those plans, some of the things that we've been learning about how to create. And I know it says, we updated it yesterday. It was in your notes. It might say irresistible environments, and that's the language that we've used for a long time. And I understand it feels a little pretentious. You're like, irresistible, really? Like, is it? Because I've invited my friend, and they said no. And so seems like they resisted, right? And so I can understand, the irresistible, so another way that we've been thinking about this recently is, hey, how do we create a come and see culture at our church? And when I say come and see, you're all familiar with that story in John's gospel. At the very beginning of John's gospel, there's this really great interaction, and this is where we get this come and see culture language from. At the beginning of John's gospel, he talks about John the Baptist is down at the river, and he's baptizing people, and he's got his disciples, and he's teaching, and he's hanging out with two of his disciples, and along comes Jesus, and John points to grabs his friends, and he says, hey, look, there he is, the Lamb of God. And they're intrigued. They're like, we've heard about this guy. We've heard about his reputation. You've been telling us that he's going to be amazing, and so we want to go and learn from him. And so they're like, hey, can we go hang out with him? He's like, yeah, absolutely. That's what I came for. And so they go, and they spend the day with Jesus. And it's funny, they were walking up behind Jesus, and Jesus looks at them, and he's like, well, what do you want? And they're like, and they go and they hang out with him. And they spend the day with him. And apparently the time that Andrew and Philip end up spending with Jesus that day, it marked them. It was apparently an incredible experience, because they immediately left. And what they do after spending the day with Jesus is Andrew goes and finds his brother. And he goes, Peter, you got to come hang out with this guy. You got to come and hang out with this guy. Like, you got to come and see. Like, I'm just telling you, like, whatever, like, the way he teaches, the way he talks, the way he welcomed, like, his life, his minute, whatever, he's so compelling. You got to come and see. And then Philip, you know what happens, right? Philip goes and finds his friend Nathaniel, and he goes, you got to come and see this guy I've been spending time with. I just spent the day with him. You've got to come and check it out too. I'm telling you, I'm going back because, like, I don't want to miss what he's going to do next. So, like, he's like, I'm going back. You should come with me. And Nathaniel is skeptical, like a lot of the people that we're inviting to church, right? Nathaniel's skeptical. He's like, really? Nazareth? Can anything good come from Nazareth? Like, he sounds backwaters. Like, what are we talking about here? And I love Philip's response. He doesn't try to argue with him. He doesn't try to condemn him. He doesn't say, well, if you don't come, you're going to hell, duh. Like it's not threatening. He says, come and see. Oh, just come check it out. Just come here for yourself. Just come on, come and check it out. I'm telling you, I spent the day with him. It was amazing. I'm going back. You should come with me. That come and see culture. When you read that story, I find myself thinking, what if our churches were like that? What if our churches were like that? Like those interactions. What if when people came here to our churches, when they came and they spent time with us, what if it was so exceptional? What if it was so intriguing? What if it was so hospitable? What if it was so moving? What if it was so transcendent? What if when they came and they spent time with us, they went, I got to come back. And then they went and they found somebody else and they go, you got to come with me. You got to come and see, right? What would that be like? Can you imagine if your church, if my church was able to be like that? What if we could create a come and see culture where people in our community, our church people, feel compelled to invite their unchurched friends? And what if we could create a culture where when an unchurched person comes to our church, they love it and they want to come back and they want to bring their family and their friends, right? That's what we're talking about right now, a come and see culture. And so I want to talk to you guys just for a few moments about some practices to helping your church and some things that we've learned that's been helping our church to be a come and see culture. And before I get into the practices, though, I do want to point this out. I'm going to share with you some helpful practices. I'm not prescribing to you everything that you need to go and do at your church. I'm going to share with you some things that we've learned, and then you all are leaders. Eat the fish, spit out the bones, right? Like take what you need from this and apply it in your context. But you've got to do the work of contextualizing it, right? Everything may not work exactly the same in your context and in your environment, so this is not a prescription. This is a description of things that we are doing, and then you go as teams and you do the work and you dig in and you figure out how to apply it to build a come and see culture at your church, right? But I'm going to share with you a few things that we've been learning, and I also want to say this from the very beginning. I just want you to hear me say this, and I know that you know this, but I feel like I need to tell you, and is that these things that I'm going to talk about, these practices, they are no substitute for the work of the Holy Spirit in people's lives. And they are no substitute for you all being desperate and consistent in prayer for your church and your community. These practices are no substitute for a desperate and consistent prayer life. And so I want you to take some of these practices and I want you to apply them. But more than that, I want you to be crying out to God for your people, for your church, for your community. Okay? So, what are the 4 things? It used to be 3 things. We've added one recently, and so I'll start with the newest one. How are we going to engage and appeal to unchurched people in our community? How do we create a come and see culture? You can be following along. The notes are in there. I don't do as many slides, but there's all the things. And if you hear something and I say it and it's not on there, and you want me to say it again, I may not remember it. But if you need something that I've said, then just come and see me afterwards, and I'll email it to you. So first thing, if you want to create a come and see culture, this is what we're learning. It starts with endearing yourself to the community. It starts with endearing yourself to the community. You've probably all heard the quote from Theodore Roosevelt that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? And so like it or not, you guys, the reality is that our reputations, they precede us, right? Which means that people are experiencing us long before they ever show up in person. And so the question is, what are they experiencing? What are they experiencing? Another way to think about this, a question that we ask ourselves often around Gwinnett Church, and this is something that the founder of Gwinnett Church, he kind of coined this question, and we've continued on to ask that, is what are we known for? What are we known for in our community? It's a great question to be asking as a team. It's an important question for you all to be asking consistently. What we've discovered in the States, and you guys, you know this as well, you know this just naturally, is that for a long time, the church has really just been known for what it's against. And what we've said is, gosh, we want to be known for what we're for. But what are we known for? And so we have to ask ourselves that question consistently. Hey, in the community and online, what are we known for? What are people saying about us? Do people even know that we exist? Do they know that we're here? Do they know why we're here? Are they glad that we're here? These are some great questions to be considering when it comes to the community and your relationship with the community. I was working at another church in Atlanta for a short time, and I went over to, I was doing youth ministry there, and I went over to one of the local schools to talk to the football players. And these are not these football players. These are, you know what I mean? Like the American football players. And so I went to go talk to them and have just a character conversation. We were talking about morals and character. And so going over there to speak to them and encourage them. And I went over there, and some of the guys asked me where I worked. And I said, oh, I work at that church, right down the street. And they said, what? And I was like, the one that's like right there, like you can see it. And they were like, never heard of it. And that was concerning for me. Wait, we're right there and you've never heard of us? You didn't even know we existed? You didn't even know we had services? You didn't even know what? It was very concerning for me. I realized, oh my gosh, like what we're known for is nothing, right? So a good question to be asking, what are we known for? Our goal, we want people to know that we're here in the community. We want people to know why we're here, to love, to serve, and point people to Jesus. And we want people to be glad we're here because of the value that we're adding in the community around us. Some ways that we do this, you guys, some ways that we're trying to do this. We're not always succeeding, but some ways that we're attempting to do this to endear ourselves to the community. One, we do something called 4 projects. So each month, we have a project that we rally our church around to show our community that we're for them, and so to get our church out of the building and out into the community. And so we do monthly 4 projects, and these are partnerships with local nonprofits that are doing good in our community. So we made a decision early on, Lane and the team made a decision early on that they weren't going to try to invent every kind of philanthropy in the community, that they were going to partner with people that were doing good. And so what we've done is we've made some partnerships, local food banks, addiction ministries, and recovery houses and places like that. And so we try to come alongside them, and we want to give them either money or volunteers or support or just raise awareness for them. And so each month, what we do is we'll do a monthly 4 project, and so we'll partner with them, we'll ask them what they need, and we'll rally around it, we'll announce it from stage at church, also through the website, and we'll try to motivate our people to take action and to show the community that we're for them by supporting these local organizations. And so this is one of the things that we're doing. So each month, 4 project. And so it might look like we're gonna fill the food pantry shelves this month. So let's rally around, let's do it. We're gonna fill their food shelves. It might be, hey, this week we're gonna do some work at the local recovery house, and we're gonna do all of their maintenance. We're gonna repaint. We're gonna do some things around there. So we're gonna send them volunteers. And sometimes it looks like, there's another ministry that we partner with that cares for families that are dealing with childhood cancer. And so one time, one of our 4 projects was as simple as giving the names of all the families to everybody in the church and asking them if they would commit to pray for that family. And just say, hey, for the next month, would you just stick that family's name, their name on your fridge, and just when you see it, would you pray for them? And so 4 projects monthly, keeping us outward focused and getting out in the community and doing things. This is a way that we try to endear ourselves to the community, showing up at their stuff. A lot of times we're like always so frustrated because they don't want to show up at our stuff, people in our community. And there's a guy named Sam Chan, and he's an author and an apologist and evangelist in Australia. And he wrote a great book about personal evangelism, and just interpersonal. And he said, hey, what I've found is with my neighbors that are unchurched, if I show up at their stuff, they're more likely to then, when I invite, show up at one of my things. So he's like, I just show up at their stuff. And so we've taken that and we're applying that now as a whole church and going, hey, instead of always asking the community to come to us, what would it look like for us to just go to the community? And so local 5Ks, local 10Ks, we're always asking the city planners and the people that are putting on these events, hey, we'd love to show up, and we're going to show up, and we'll bring water bottles. we'll bring water. And our water bottles don't say Gwinnett Church. They say for Gwinnett. Gwinnett is our county. And so they don't say anything about our church. It says for Gwinnett, and it's got a QR code with a link to our website. And so we're giving out waters. We're loving and serving them. There's been some other local events in like our city centers or our town centers. And when they do those, we'll ask them, hey, what do you need? You need photographers for your event? We have some awesome photographers, some people that look like you with the cool glasses and stuff. You know what I mean? Like we're like, hey, we'll send all of our cool kids with their ripped jeans and their awesome glasses, and they'll take pictures for you, and they'll do it for free. And so you'll have great photos from your event. It costs you nothing. We'll upload them to a Dropbox, and they're yours. And people are like, what? What's the catch? Like, what do we got to do? Nothing. No strings attached. Love, benevolence, and generosity. Right? So we're going to show up at your stuff. And then what's interesting is you do that enough times, and then when you cast an invite, then people are like, man, these people keep showing up for us. We might as well show up for one of their things. And so we show up at their stuff, and another thing that we're trying to do is open up our space to serve the community. So when the community needs something, and you all, many of you are doing this really, really well, where you view it not just as your space for Sunday, but as a space for the community all week long. So opening up your space to serve the community. And then one thing that we do, we've done this really, really well for a while, which is add value to the community with no strings attached generosity. No strings attached service and generosity. And one of the big ones that we do each year, once a year, is called Be Rich. And it comes from the passage where Paul's talking to Timothy, and he says, hey, command those that are rich in this world to be rich in good deeds. And so what we've done is once a year we come around with this no strings attached generosity, where we flood all of our cities with resources. We give money, and we give service hours, and we do it, and all the churches rally around, and it's this massive move of no strings attached generosity, and it makes a really, really big difference. We found unchurched people that are like, hey, I don't know if I'm going to come to church all the time, but I'll write a check to that because you guys are really making a difference. And so if we want to create a come and see culture, you guys, it starts with a go and be mentality. So if you add value out there, if you want people to ever show up here, you have to add value out there first. I wrote this in my notes that we used to try to be a destination for people in our community, but the reality is if you aren't making a difference, you'll never be a destination. If you're not making a difference in your community, you'll never be a destination for people in your community. And so some questions that you should be asking as a team: what are we known for? What should we be known for? And what are some ways we could show the community that we're for them so that they might get a glimpse that God is too? So those are some great questions to be asking. If you want to build a come and see culture, it starts with endearing yourself to the community. Now, let's talk about what they experience when they get here, right? Let's talk about the experience when they get to our churches. What do they experience that then makes them want to come back? So they've seen us doing good in our community. They know that there's a group of people here that are for them. So when they show up, let's talk about the experience that they have when they get here. And so some things to pay attention to, and Lane touched on this a little bit, but the first one is when they get here, it should be an appealing setting. We say appealing setting, right? What are we talking? The physical environment, the space, when they get here, right? All ministry takes place in a physical environment, and the settings create a first impression, and you know this, first impressions matter, right? An appealing setting speaks to people, right? So, as the vibe matters, right? When people show up. And coffee shops get it, restaurants get it, but churches often don't. And so an uncomfortable or a distracting setting, it can derail ministry before it ever even happens. And so Lane was talking about, cleanliness, just making sure that when you look around, like, hey, is there stuff stacked in the corner that like where did that, I don't know, I didn't notice it, but somebody new does. So cleanliness, a clean environment communicates we were expecting you. An organized environment communicates that we're serious about this and about you, and we're glad that you're here. An organized environment. So that goes like that. This is even thinking about, you guys, the foot traffic, the flow of foot traffic. Even something as simple as that not putting a coffee stand right in front of a check-in station, so then you end up with this massive queue and then people get frustrated, right? So it's like just even the intentionality and the organization around that is communicating to your guests, we were expecting you, right? And so cleanliness, organization, safety, these are all things, creativity, these things matter when people show up. Everything from the things that are on your wall, the artwork on your wall. I'll tell you guys where we got this wrong recently. When we first started Gwinnett Church, we wanted to put vision and artwork all over the walls. And so in lots of spaces, we had these cool art pieces made, and they're communicating vision. And we had this one that was like amazing. And it looked really, really great, and it had all of our vision and values on there. But one of them was talking about the relationships, the vital relationships that we have. So it's, community with insiders, and we had influence with outsiders. And that was like one of the values on the wall. And it was that way for 7-8 years. And then I took over as lead pastor, and I had a friend come, and he was guest preaching. And after church, I'm walking him around. Hey, look at these cool art things. Isn't this cool? Yay, go me. And so I'm walking him around and showing him the church. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, it looks so great. And he looks at the art piece and he goes, influence with outsiders. He was like, well, what if I'm an outsider? And I was like, huh. He goes, make me feel like a project. And I was like, no, It's that moment where you're like, oh, right? So then he left, and I was like, take it down now, So we took it down, right? And now it's become editable space, and we do some other things. We actually do all of our 4 projects in front of that wall now. And so we build, we'll build out art pieces or donation boxes and things like that in front of that wall. But we just weren't seeing it. So that was creating probably a barrier along the way. Another area where we haven't gotten this right as far as creating an appealing setting. And this seems so simple, but it's one of those things that we have to pay attention to when it comes to like organizing things. Was our parking lot signage. It was confusing. So we had parking lots, we have lots around our building, and each one we were trying to be cute and creative, and we named them after cities in our county. So when a new person was showing up, they're calling their friend, and they're like, hey, where do I park? And they're like, well, I'm parked over in Duluth. And they're like, Duluth? But I'm at your church in Sugar Hill. I didn't know there was a Duluth. And so they're thinking they're in the wrong place. And the friend is like, no, drive around to Swanee. And they're like, I don't know where I'm at, And it was frustrating. And then you get in there, and now you're mad because you thought you were in the wrong city. And so it was very confusing. And we realized, this is not it was cool. And we were trying to be creative. And what we ended up doing is we created confusion, which makes a frustrating experience. And it's not an appealing setting. And so even things like, hey, is it clear how to navigate our space for an outsider? Not for the person who grew up there and was water birthed in your baptismal and knows everything about it. You know what I mean? I'm talking about for the person who's showing up for the first time and doesn't know anything. Could they navigate your space? Can they find the restrooms? Do they know how to get their kid? Do they know where to park? Is it clear? Is the space appealing, right? And so these are things to be thinking through that communicate to a guest, hey, we were expecting you. We're glad you're here. We're excited that you're here, and we've prepared for you. We were expecting and hoping you'd be coming. And so you guys know this. The sermon begins in the parking lot, and periodically we all need fresh eyes on our ministry environments, right? And so maybe you need to have somebody on your team that goes through and looks at it from time to time, somebody that's that recognizes messes or has an eye for it. It may not be you. For me, something that I do, and maybe not every senior pastor or lead pastor can do this, but you got to get somebody to do it. But what I do is every 6 to 8 weeks, because I have an awesome backup preacher named Andy Stanley, and so because he preaches from time to time, right? Every 6 to 8 weeks, what I'll do is I'll plan a Sunday where I am not on stage. And what I'll do is I'll go to our different ministry environments. And I just I'm not going in with like a clipboard or anything. I actually go and encourage our volunteers. Sometimes I'll do a devotional for some of the volunteers in those areas, but it's also helping me to go in and see what's looking outdated, what's looking tired, what might need some attention, what's unclear. And so I'm able to walk around and do that. So I try to do that every 6 to 8 weeks. But somebody needs to be doing that in your environments. And so what are some questions that we should be asking? Are our ministry settings appealing for our target audience, the unchurched person? Does the design, decor, and attention to detail in your environments, does it reflect what and who is most important to you? And then maybe a good question for you to start at, what's starting to look tired? Might need a refresh. All right. So we're going to endearing ourselves to the community. We've got appealing setting. The next thing, if we want to come and see culture, an engaging presentation. You guys know this. Engaging presentations are central to the success and the mission. Presenting the gospel is the primary responsibility of the church. And you guys, if we believe the good news, if we believe that the good news is really the best news for people, then we should be doing the best job we can possibly do in presenting it. Yes? So, an engaging presentation, right? You know this, to engage means to secure one's attention. Generally speaking, it's the presentation that makes the information interesting. Great presenters, they know how to make the information that people already know even interesting. I hear all the time that, attention spans are diminishing, but the attention span of your audience is really determined by the quality of the presentation. And so I hear people all the time, we need to cut our sermons down, because, attention spans are shrinking. But actually, like, long-form content is increasing. So the same people that you're like won't sit through a 15-minute sermon will watch 7 hours in a row binging a Netflix show. So is it that their attention span is diminishing, or do our sermons just, And so it's like, wait a minute, hold on. So, and I'm saying that to myself as well. I don't think it's that the attention span is diminishing. I do think, like, obviously people are on their TikTok and all that kind of stuff all the time, way too much. But I do think people will pay attention to long-form content. People will pay attention to your sermon if we'll put in the work to make it engaging. And so engaging presentation is really, really important. Engaging presentations, though, they require presenters they require our presenters to be engaging, or for us to think of engaging means of presenting. And so in this basically, if we want to get better at creating engaging presentations, there's kind of 3 areas that we think through. One is in the prep, and I see a lot of preachers that they want to leave room for the Holy Spirit, and they think that means not prepping, because I just got to feel it in the moment. And so they write their whole sermon on a napkin, and they ramble for 50 minutes, but you know what I mean? And I just want to remind you, those of you that speak consistently, the Holy Spirit can and will be as present in the prep as he will be in the moment. Okay? So that means, right, like, you can and ought to be inviting the Holy Spirit into your preparation, and he will meet you there, and he will inspire you. And that doesn't, and honestly, what's amazing is, and you'll find this is, the more prepared you are ahead of time, the more aware you are of his voice in the moment, because you're not trying to think of the next thing that you've got to say. You're prepared ahead of time. You know where you're going to go, and then you can listen to the prompting of the Holy Spirit in the moment if he says you need to stay on a point. So the more prepared you are, actually, the more aware you are. And so preparation is important for engaging presentations. Something that I like to do is I try to finish my notes by Thursday and going into Sunday. And when I finish those notes, I tend to send them. I have a group of 5 people that I send them to. And I'll send the notes, and I will have them evaluate and go, hey, what's missing from this? What's not there? Where is it confusing? Where is it not clear? Does this connect with the audience? I don't think that I have enough examples. Do you got some examples? I've never been a mom. Does this connect with a mom? And so it's like asking some of those questions. And so I have a group of 5 people. They're not all necessarily communicators. Some of them are just great thinkers. Some of them are just great feedback givers. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have, and actually, if you want in your prep, something that I do to make sure that I'm keeping the unchurched person in mind in my sermon is I will send my sermon to my brother who's not churched. And he's very skeptical and he's very closed off. But recently, I feel like God's been working on him, and he's been open to conversations. And I asked him recently, I said, hey, do you mind if I send you my sermon? I said, I'd like to send you my sermons. And I said, not to convince you of anything. I want you to critique me. Tell me, what am I missing? Is this something that would be interesting to you? Is this something that would be compelling to you? Is this something that answers some of the questions? And what he'll do is he'll watch my sermons, you guys, and then he'll send me back. And nobody will critique you like a little brother. You know what I mean? So it's fantastic. But this is a great way for you to make sure that your sermons in your prep are engaging for an unchurched person. Gosh, am I actually answering questions that they're asking? Or am I answering the questions that I think that they should be asking, right? Or am I answering questions that nobody's asking? And so I send them to those 5 people, and I also send them each week. I'll send my notes over, and I'll send my sermons over after the fact. A lot of times I'll send them to my brother, and he'll give me feedback, which is really, really great and is helping me to be more and more engaging, right, in the prep. And then another thing that we're doing in our preparation, and this is, we weren't calling it this, but Duncan shared this with me recently. We were calling it what we called X Factor moments. In our sermons, which is like that thing that stands out. But then Duncan shared an article and a conversation, a podcast with me with this lady, Nancy Duarte, and she calls them star moments, something they'll always remember. So something that we're doing in order to help create engaging conversations is, as a team, we're devoting time together, looking at it going like, hey, what's the star moment? And I recognize, like, we present, we're preaching 50 times a year, maybe 52. I don't know how many you take off, but we're preaching and presenting on a consistent basis. So you might not be able to do that with every single Sunday. So what we try to do is we try to think of, in a series of teachings. Might be that you're teaching through a series that's just an idea. It might be that you're teaching through a book of the Bible. Whatever it is, in a series of teachings, we're asking ourselves, what's the star moment in this series? Hey, what's the moment that makes the whole thing, like, it ties a bow on it, or it makes it stick with people? What's that something they'll always remember from this series? Could be a closing song that really speaks to the message of the whole series. It could be a response moment in the service where they're invited to interact, or they're invited to move, or to get up, or to do something. It could be an illustration that you use on the stage that's like some kind of physical illustration that they go, oh, I'll never forget when they had that ladder and they talked about God coming down the ladder to me instead of me climbing the ladder to him. And it's a visual maybe that they remember. Maybe it's a movie clip that you're going to show or something like that. So we're constantly thinking, hey, what's that something they'll always remember? Maybe it's a take home that they get from the series. So what's that thing that makes it stand out? That makes it stick with them. This is something that we're thinking through. And then the last thing that I think you need to do, if you're going to continue to grow, and that if we're going to continue to grow in engaging presentation, is that you need to evaluate consistently. And this is the thing that all of us are afraid to do because it hurts, is to look at how it went after the fact. And so evaluate and invite feedback. And one thing that I had never done before coming to North Point, but it's helped me immensely, is to watch yourself. And so maybe you got the nice camera in the back of the room. Maybe you just have somebody, one of your kids or your spouse or something, just film you on your iPhone. And then go back and watch yourself, which is terrifying. I mean, I don't even like to hear my own voice. I'm like, But to go back and watch yourself, and you'll see, gosh, there might be some things that you're doing. There might be a part of your approach. There might be like just something, a way that you gave that sermon that was unappealing, that was not engaging. You might notice in the sermon, oh my gosh, like I lose energy in this part of the sermon every single time. For some of you, it's like I lose energy. Like I get really excited about the opening story, and I get really excited about the end. But when I get to the Bible part, I'm like, And so you're like, why do I always lose energy in the text, right? Like, and Lane will talk a little bit more about that later, but it's like when you watch yourself, you'll notice those things, and then you'll be able to improve. And so watching yourself, also senior leaders, invite feedback. Most people are not going to just readily give you feedback other than like, good job, And if they like giving you criticism, then they're just called mean. You know what I mean? Like, and so you're going to have to invite it for it to be helpful. You know what I mean? And so maybe it's those same 5 people that I send my notes to ahead of time. I'll ask them, hey, like, did it land the way that we hoped it would in the prep? And so I ask them, hey, how'd it go? And I'll ask them, where did I lose energy? Hey, was it engaging? Did I connect with the audience? Was the tension that I raised, like, was it actually like tensions that people feel? Did the text come alive? I'll ask them some questions. And so I think inviting feedback is really, really important. So some questions that you can ask about whether or not you're creating engaging presentations. Is your culture characterized by a relentless commitment to engaging presentations at every level? Meaning, this is not just for the senior pastor that preaches or for the person that hosts on a Sunday. This is also for our kids pastors as you're talking about presenting to your students or your kids or even presenting in front of volunteers. Hey, am I engaging? So are your preachers and presenters evaluated and coached? And then does your system create opportunities for the best content creators to actually partner with the presenters? Are you getting good thinkers and good content writers together with some of your speakers so then you actually together come up with the very best, most engaging presentation you can? Last thing. If we're going to be a come and see culture, the last thing that we need to be focused on that we're learning and that we're continuing to try to apply is helpful content. Helpful content. Helpful, you guys know this. Helpful equals useful. I'm going to say something that might rub some of you the wrong way, but true isn't enough. I know. Some people are like, wait, what? But ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free, But listen, true is not enough. You know this. There's plenty of people that are saying true things, but they're saying it in an uncompelling or an unhelpful way, and it's falling on deaf ears. And so, yes, does God's word return void? Never. But we want to be helpful with the truth. I love that the way Jesus would often end his sermons and his illustrations, right? You can even see it in the Sermon on the Mount. He ends and he says, hey, anyone who takes these words of mine and then puts them into practice, meaning everything that I've just said to you is not only true, it's applicable and it's helpful. He says, you'll be like a person that built your house, your life on the rock. This is going to be good for you. This is going to be helpful for you. If you take this stuff and you actually do it, Jesus is saying, your life is going to be better. And something that we say to our church all the time is, hey, if you actually follow Jesus, if you do the stuff that we're talking about on Sundays, then not only it's going to make your life better, and it will make you better at life. So following Jesus, we believe, will make your life better and make you better at life. And it's our way of saying, like, hey, this stuff is helpful. And so what we need to be thinking about is some questions that we ask in our preparation is, what do we want them to do with what they just heard? It's a great question to be asking when you're presenting, when you're preaching, when you're presenting to volunteers, when you're presenting especially in front of our unchurched friends, right? Like, what do we want them to do with what they just heard? It might be a go do this. It might be a go and read this. It might be a go and try this. It might be a go and discuss this. It might be, hey, just for this week, would you try this? Like, would you give this a shot? Hey, I'm not even asking you to believe what I believe, but this week, would you try this? See if it doesn't make a difference. And so, maybe it's a write this down and read it each day. Maybe it's, hey, write this down and put this statement in your mirror and say this every day. The thing that I'm always thinking of, what on Sunday can move into Monday? That's the thing that I'm always trying to ask myself. What on Sunday can move into Monday? What on Sunday can they take with them into Monday? If it doesn't move from Sunday to Monday, then it wasn't helpful. It's got to move from Sunday to Monday. And so I'm always asking, all right, what's my Monday moment? What's my Monday moment that moves? Something that Andy's been doing that I think is brilliant, and it's helping people take Sunday content into their Monday and their Tuesday and their Wednesday. Something that he's doing every week is he'll close each of his sermons, he'll pray, and then he'll say, hey, I've got 3 questions that I'd love for you to consider, and I'd love for you to talk about this week. So we're going to go from monologue to dialogue. And so we want you to take these 3 questions, and we want you to talk about it this week. You can talk about it with your spouse. You can talk about it with your roommates. You can talk about it with your small group. You can talk about it with a mentor or a friend. And maybe you can talk about it with one of your siblings. And so he'll give 3 questions from the message. And the hope is that it's helping the content move from Sunday to Monday. And they're thinking about it. And sometimes the 3rd question is the action item. So sometimes it's 2 questions and a do. And so I think that's been brilliant. It's been helpful for us to help content move from Sunday to Monday. So some questions to be asking, right? Is your content helpful? Do your content creators and do your communicators understand that the goals are renewed minds and changed behaviors? Are they planning with that in mind? And then the 3rd, is your content age and stage of life specific? Okay, somebody's notifications are on. Duncan! So is your content age and stage of life, hey, am I speaking to the needs of the people that I'm communicating in front of? Or am I just answering the questions that I want to answer, right? That's what it is. So in conclusion, you guys, creating a come and see environment for your church is critical, and it has eternal consequences. It matters, and it matters deeply. I know it matters deeply to you. It matters deeply to me that our church is a come and see context, because I'm just telling you guys, there's a read more in your community, and there's probably a lot of them in your community. And they're hungry, and they're searching. Oh, they're searching for something, and they've been looking in all the wrong places. And you have the answer in Jesus. So let's work at this to create a come and see culture so that those people, when they show up, for my Pentecostal friends, I'm being prophetic right now. So when they show up, they come and they have an incredible experience and they want to come back. So let's endear ourselves to the community. Let's create appealing settings. Let's think about what everything looks like so that when somebody comes in, they know we were expecting them. Let's work hard to create engaging presentations. Don't phone it in. Every Sunday could be somebody's first Sunday. So let's create engaging presentations. And then let's create helpful content that helps move Sunday messages into Monday lives and into Monday families and into Monday workspaces and into Monday schools. And if we'll do that, we could create a come and see culture where people they come and they want to come back and they want to bring their other unchurched friends and lives get changed. Amen? I'd love to pray for us. Heavenly Father, thank you so much. Thank you for your goodness and your grace. Thank you that you love us. Thank you that you've saved us, but you didn't save us just to sit in seats. You saved us and you sent us to carry on your mission. It's your mission to seek and save the lost. So help us. God, I do pray right now that something that was said today was helpful, that it was applicable, that teams and churches, we would take some of what was said and apply it in their context. God, help our churches to become and see cultures. And God, help us to use the things that we're learning today to reach people in our community so that they can know you. God, not so that we can have full churches, but so that people can have full life in you. I don't care about a full room. I want people to know you and to experience life in you. And so, God, that's what we're hoping for. That's what we want. That's what we desire. And so, God, would you take this? Would you multiply it? Would you do with it as you see fit? Would you help these leaders to apply it in the way that you've equipped them and called them and gifted them to be able to apply and help them to make a difference? We love you. We trust you. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen.